We are recording, Madam Chair.
Good morning, everyone.
Morning, Madam Chair.
The first item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda.
I'd like to make that motion.
Thanks, Eric.
I'll second.
Thank you very much, Jean. Doug, could you call the vote, please?
Eric Kell,
Yes.
Councillor Tully,
Yes.
Councillor Bratney,
Yes.
Chair Defoe,
Yes.
carried by 4.
Next item we have is the disclosure of interest. So based on the agenda for today's meeting, does anyone have anything they need to disclose at this time?
Not at this particular time, no.
Oh, I think you're muted, Eric.
Oh, how did that happen?
Not sure.
Okay. I'm saying not at this time. If
Perfect.
something comes up, I'll definitely tell you.
Okay. All right, well, hearing no positive responses, then the next item would be the approval of our minutes from the last meeting.
And I'll make that motion as well.
Thank you. I need a seconder.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, Ken. Doug, could you call the vote, please?
Eric Kell. I'm sorry, Eric.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Sorry. I don't know what's going on.
Councillor Tully,
Yes.
Councillor Bratney,
Yes.
Chair Defoe,
Yes.
carried by 4.
Okay, so the next item is our reports from Jeff. So I will turn things over to you, Jeff, if you want to go through your or your new reports.
Certainly. Thank you, Madam Chair. Usually we don't go through the false alarm or group home calls unless you want to touch on those.
I didn't see any reason to, unless someone else has something they want to add.
No, they looked in pretty good shape to me.
Okay.
I will carry on then to the September Police Services Board report. So starting at the top is our general format, our public complaints. So no new complaints, either internal service related or officer conduct related for the month of September. So that's good news. Secondary employment. I think I had mentioned to the board last month that our number had been at 5 for as long as I could remember. So I did conduct a review of that detachment wide. In fact, it is updated and it's that new number of 2. So that's 2 officers who have secondary employment outside of the OPP. And again, that's a bit of a process that when an officer does want to have secondary income or employment outside of policing, that it's a process that goes right up to a deputy commissioner, and then it's looked at through our professional standards as well, just to ensure that everything's appropriate and by our police orders. So that's the new number for secondary employment. Rolling into our daily activity reporting hours, you will see 436 3/4 cruiser patrol hours. We had 4.5 hours of motorcycle patrol hours. In September, 60 hours of foot patrol, which is a nice big number I like to see. And number of school patrol hours was 3. Several detachment initiatives, as we usually like to highlight in our reports. One of them was the focus school zones, mandatory for the month of September. We've been doing that for a few years now, just to ensure that we have a fully marked cruiser in each school zone, or as much as we can spread out every morning, even if it's just for 10 minutes to get travelers and commuters used to the idea of school buses rolling again, kids crosswalking, things like that. So that's something that we just wrapped up. It doesn't mean we're not going to be there in the school zones, but that was a focus patrol that we run every September for every morning. It didn't happen in Trent Hills, but a bit of a disturbing incident, North Hope in the municipality of Port Hope. We had an officer about 3 weeks ago. So she went down, she selected that school zone for that particular morning, and she was only set up for about 5 minutes. And if the officer does have radar on board in the cruiser, usually they'll turn it on. The setup of North Hope, it's a bit of a long stretch. So within about 5 minutes, she had a speeder come in 54 kilometers over the posted limit, the school zone, community safety zone of 40. So that individual was, of course, stopped immediately, and stunt driving is the charge for that, because once you get over 49 over, it moves on to stunt driving. So very serious charge, serious implications, towed vehicle, impounded vehicle, suspended driver's license immediately at the side of the road for 7 days. So a great nab by Constable Jill Shimada there. Not the end of the story, however. Once she cleared from that vehicle, another vehicle that had been reported earlier in the northern area, south area of Peterborough County, northern part of Northumberland, of a possible impaired driver. The same vehicle came into Jill's radar again for speeding, and consequently was arrested for impaired driving and taken back into our detachment for a breathalyzer, blew almost twice the legal limit. And this is somebody going through one of our school zones. So terrific work from Jill. Jill's one of our best younger officers. Quite a shift for her. That's how she started her shift. At the end of the shift, we had an arson / mental health call in Alderville, where a house was purposely lit on fire, and the individual who was eventually arrested had actually doused himself in gasoline, and due to the house being on fire, he became engulfed himself. Upon police arrival, he had stripped his clothes off, so he was still had a little bit of flame on him and whatnot. Some mental health issues going on here, of course. Jill was able to wrestle him to the ground, still having gasoline and a little bit of fire on him too. So heck of a way to start your shift and a heck of a way to end it. So just amazing work from the platoon that day. And Jill, we're going to be recommending a Commissioner's Medal of Bravery for her for that last act of the day.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Not specific to Trent Hills, but I think stories like that are important to share with all of our boards, because it could quite easily happen anywhere in any of our municipalities. Yeah. So our different initiatives, and we just give you a little snapshot of some corporate communication that's sent out from the OPP, and then some local as well. So this month, just a request for a mischief investigation ongoing in Brighton. Unfortunately, it has to do with some graffiti and racial slurs as well. So when those happen, that we engage our hate crime and extremism unit in Aurelia as well, so that they can assist in the investigation if needed. Next is a suspicious person report in Alderville, where a suspicious person approached a young lad in Alderville on the way to out of school. So we put a lot of resources into that immediately. Obviously, those are quite concerning. And this fellow was identified within 48 hours and dealt with accordingly. Then you'll see the OPP corporately released 2019 opioids and overdose report, just talking about impacts and strategies of how the OPP moves forward, who we're partnering with, wanting to partner even further with different community organizations and agencies, just to assist both of our mandates. Moving on to hopefully my report is the same as you see in front of you. My next one is the motor vehicle collision statistical report. So countywide, there was 50 motor vehicle collisions in September. No collision is good, but it is down significantly from the year before of 90. 42 of those property damage and 8 involved personal injury. We didn't have any fatal motor vehicle collisions in September. At the time of this report, we had only one fatal motor vehicle collision, and that was an ATV related in August in Hamilton Township. Unfortunately, our last week has been a heck of a week for a few families and our officers as well. We've had 3 fatal motor vehicle collisions last Monday. Of course, a tragedy affecting the Trent Hills community, Campbellford community. Then Friday, we had a motorcycle involved fatal on Highway 2 just going into Colburn. And then less than 24 hours later, another ATV related fatal in Cramy as well. So unfortunate at any times, and some of the things that our officers have to see and deal with when you're responding to scenes like this. Also a week in between all of that, we had a couple of incidents that occurred within an hour of each other where officers were injured and hospitalized as well due to the violence involved in those.
Jeff, do you have any information on the other or the driver, I guess, of the vehicle that was involved in the accident here in Campbellford?
Yeah, I can't talk a lot about that right now, Kathy, because it's still under investigation. I can tell you that there's a significant amount of work looking into that. Any fatal, we track backwards on that just to see where it came from. Board members, you probably know a little bit of the information, what was released to media. His age being 17 and the circumstances leading up to it have certainly led us to go down some different avenues. So I can tell you that it's still being worked on.
Now, is he still hospitalized?
I don't know that, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I know he had some significant injuries himself. So I would imagine he is. It's only been a week, so.
Okay, thank you.
Let's see now. Okay, so that's motor vehicle collisions, touched on fatalities. My next page is the overall, the county spreadsheet, which just shows you the snapshot of collisions in all the municipalities. So for September, 9 collisions total in Trent Hills, 8 were property damage, and 1 involved a personal injury. Violent crime, 4 occurrences of violent crime, down from 6 from last September. We had 1 sexual assault reported to us, 1 assault, and 2 other crimes against the person. Property crime, significantly lower than last year, a total of 9 compared to the 31. 3 of those were break and enters, 1 was a theft under 5,000, 1 was a fraud, and 4 were mischiefs. Nothing of particular note of any of those, they were all one-offs. And drug crime, 1 case of a trafficking charge against an individual. Next page is our clearance rate page for your reading pleasure. Next portion is our matters of interest. So a few of our different stories throughout the county that we picked for the information of the boards. Top of that page, you'll see 327 calls for service, OPP calls for service in Trent Hills for September. 6 of those were the Emergency Management Civil Protection Act or the COVID non-compliant calls that we received. Not a bad number considering the number of calls for service. At one point during the year, they were much, much higher when there's, I guess, when it was not the normal that we were living in initially. Ride checks, 49 countywide. And then a few of your stories that I won't read to you, of course. A couple of Trent Hills occurrences in there. After that is our Provincial Offence Act charges report. There were 40 tickets issued throughout the municipality in September. False alarm report, 7 alarms at 3 different locations. And that's the report. Usually we have that auxiliary report at the end, but they're still currently not active. bit of a tough time for our auxiliary members because they're so dedicated and they're a volunteer unit, of course. And we've had a few, 4 resignations actually in the last 30 days, just as people's
wow.
lives. Yeah, it's just for different reasons, nothing specifically. One, Ken Hamill. Ken's been our staff sergeant unit commander of the auxiliary and he's been involved in auxiliary for 22 years. So Ken's actually retiring. Halloween, he's finishing off by doing foot patrol Halloween night in Brighton. So he's a pretty amazing individual and the amount of work and contributions he's made to the OPP and the community. So it is actually good news for Ken. Our complement right now, we have a max of 20 that we're approved for, 20 auxiliary members. The highest I've seen it is 16, and that was a few years ago. I was the auxiliary liaison officer at the time for 3 years. So it's one of those things that we always have to be constantly recruiting, spreading the good message to communities as far as opportunities for people to join up and give back to the communities. Right now, we're down to 10. So we're about to kick off a recruiting drive through the fall and over the winter as well. The hiring process can actually is quite similar to a constable process. So it can be quite lengthy by the time you do the interviews, the tests, the aptitudes, psychological and background phase, of course, as well. So we're hoping to get several people hired, as many as we can through the winter, so they can get their basic spring training in April. And so what we do there, I've had luck in the past by going to community colleges, Loyalist, Durham, Sir Sanford, and talking to the coordinators there, and so that they can post the interest. And pending any questions, Madam Chair, that is the September report.
Well, thank you very much. Anybody have any questions?
Kathy?
If I may, Madam Chair.
Yeah?
The incident that happened in northern Campbellford, the break and enter where they used the canine and actually found the 2 individuals is a real good story. I wish that was a little bit more publicized. It really gave people the sense of that the OPP is out there going down rural roads and looking at suspicious things and actually doing something. And I've heard a lot of very, very positive things about the canine. And I understand it's a new canine, and that team, as well as the officer, him or herself. It's wonderful. And on behalf of the community, Jeff, if you could thank that officer for thinking out of the box, congratulations.
Excellent. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Eric. I'll be sure to pass that along to the member. He's been recognized already just for having a keen eye for that. But that's something I do when a board passes along information like that. I think it's important to get that back to both the constable and their supervisor the day of as well. And it allows them to understand the relationship between detachment and the boards as well.
Kathy?
Go ahead, Gene.
Okay. Inspector commented about the fraud issues that are out there. And personally, have got calls at 6 and 6:30 in the morning about credit card issues, but the very similar recent one is about the SIM card numbers and wanting that. And I see you've highlighted that as well as the latest trickster that's out there. But I guess my question is going back to the drug raids that were done in Trent Hills here and the other one down on McKinley Road. What would be the outcome of those charges? Is there serious consequences, or is it just going to fall by the wayside? I understand it's like just hypothetical, but just what kind of results might come out of that, those grow-ups, Inspector?
Well, not a lot, Gene, to be perfectly honest. The people that are charged there are really the ones that are tending to the crops at the time. So their charges are possession related, which really with our current environment and the regulations, Health Canada regulations, criminal code, legislation with simple possession isn't a lot. Any of these grows we know they are all somehow linked to organized crime, and that's something that we're doing in the background. Of obviously we're completing these search warrants, and a lot of work, weeks of work goes into each one of these prior to a warrant being executed for various reasons, to ensure that the investigation is going to be as thorough as possible so that we are successful when it comes time to court. But a big part of it's the officer safety component as well. You would have seen that the one grow in that area, there was 19 people found in and arrested at that time. So a lot of work. We continue to push our messaging up this detachment, but really every detachment in OPP land throughout the province, everyone's experiencing the same issues, the same organized crime issues. And at a higher level in the OPP through the Organized Crime Enforcement Bureau, they're now, they've assigned analysts, and they're making those linkages now as we report this information up, who's involved, as they review and investigate every one of these licenses, if there are licenses, and they link that back, our analysts do, to really go back to see which organized crime group is responsible for each. So as far as your question, the charges are laid. It really all comes down to, as far as penalty, does that person, is there a criminal past? Has it been violent at all? But they do all proceed through court. It becomes the Crown Attorney's case at that point. Our enforcement job is complete, so we submit that Crown brief with telling the whole story and the background and the history, and we'll use that, for example, the 19 individuals for that case. There's 19 Crown briefs that are very time consuming as well, going in on each, and each individual would be have a different or perhaps the same court date, and they're processed through the judicial system individually, and then determine guilt or not guilt. And if there is guilt, then the judge would determine the penalty, if any.
It sounds like the real trick to it is to get it to the next level of trafficking in that link to get serious charges.
Yeah, and the problem is with anything organized crime, these people aren't anywhere close to the property. They're hours away or in different syndicates, and it's the labor trafficking component as well. You know, a lot of these people aren't originally from Canada, may not speak English at all, and so they're vulnerable themselves. You know, being in positions like that, they could be housed on the property in little tin shanties type of things. So on each one of those, we bring in the CBSA as well and Immigration Canada because there could be immigration issues going on as well.
Pretty sad all the way around.
It really is. It's very challenging. I spoke to the Brighton group a month or two ago as far as our status, and there's just so many out there right now, and there's that lack of regulation through Health Canada. Speaking to Detective Jim Walker, he's the lead manager on our OSEB group as it relates to illicit cannabis, illicit grows. And Jim updated me that there has been some mobilization in the last 2 or 3 months from a couple areas. One is Health Canada, and it's slow, but it is starting, that they are now pulling these licenses, if licenses do exist, because before we could go in, we could lay the charges, make arrests, we seize all the property, seize the cannabis, but they could be up and going the next day, 24 hours later, because their licenses are still intact. They would not be pulled. And when you're dealing with who you're dealing with here, the availability of cash is not an issue at all. You can go slap down quite a quantity of money to get generators and all the equipment, and you're up and going again. under the limit of, say, your 3 or 4 licenses for the property. So there has been some movement, albeit slow, through Health Canada in pulling some of these licenses. It's happening more through the fire marshal's office when they're involved, and for electrical compliance and more public safety issue that way. So that's what we're urging all of our municipalities, and I know Trent Hills is doing some great work on that as well. Go that property compliance route for now, go through the bylaws, and criminal fines, like the little bit of fines that people are receiving, really the ones that are being charged aren't the ones truly responsible for that whole operation. And small fines don't mean much to who's involved here anyway. When you get property compliance in different municipal regulations, that does add up. Also understand, Jim Walker told me that the AMO is, and we've been asking them at higher OPP levels to become engaged and work with and direct all the municipalities in one direction, rather than every municipality trying to make it on their own. So I'm told the AMO is now starting to put out some direction on how all municipalities should deal with it.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me, AMO?
The Ministry of, I'm sorry, I'm blank on that one. It's the
Association of Municipalities of Ontario.
Thank you. Yes.
Madam Chair, I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Just following up on the raids and the newspaper release that indicated that one of these groups is going to go to court tomorrow. Is there any way to see the results of these court dates, whether they're remanded, or is there any way to follow up from the public point of view, or how can we track what happens with these court dates or these issues?
Yeah, usually in non-pandemic times, dockets are public information, and dockets are posted daily in the open courthouse. I really don't know what they're doing, if they're doing something electronically right now through the local justice system. But I can look into that, make note of that, and get back to the board.
I'd appreciate that. And my second question had to do with motor vehicle collisions. And you got Trent Hills down there for all in Northumberland County. And I believe it said Trent Hills had 104, second only to Highway 401 with 160. And I just wondered, are all the bad drivers in Trent Hills because we're in second place? I don't think we really want to be there.
No, not that you don't want second or first for that, but it's population based as well. Trent Hills by far has the greatest population base of all our municipalities, as well as kilometers of highway as well. You have by far the greatest geographical area. That really isn't, and county roads as well. That really isn't off base looking at the other smaller municipalities.
Thank you.
Basically size in both areas. You've got a lot more drivers and a lot more kilometers of highway.
Great.
Okay. Thank you, Jeff, for all that information. I guess the next thing is the Black Cat radar reports.
Madam Chair, can we have a motion to receive that information, please?
Oh, certainly. Could I have a motion from a board member, please?
I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Jean.
I'll second.
Doug, could you call the vote, please?
Councillor Bratney,
Yes.
Eric Cow,
Yes.
Councillor Tully,
Yes.
Chair Defoe,
Yes.
carried by 4.
Thank you. So now we will go to the Black Cat reports, please.
So for the Black Cat reports, how it works through Trent Hills municipality, as soon as we receive them from the municipality, we send them along to Mark Collins, who's our detachment traffic sergeant. And we track all of them anyway. Most Black Cat studies, 80% or more, the findings are that there truly isn't a speeding issue, or it's a very, very minimal. So in this case, when we received them, Mark tracks all of those. Dave Putner, Dave retired back in March from Campbellford, but came back 3 days later as a part-time officer. So Dave is being assigned all these various determined hotspot speeding issues throughout Trent Hills. I see that concession 11 is one of the studies, and we've talked about that for a little bit, a few different concerns. Mark Collins sent me along a nice message. A gentleman that lives on Dennis McFadden was one of the complainants on concession 11, and he had reached out to Mark just to say thank you for all the work that OPP is doing up there. He sees them, and it's obvious to him that the OPP has made a big difference. So that was a nice message to get. Both Dave Putner and Jeff Laporte. Jeff's another one of our part-time officers. They're both up there quite a bit, patrolling 11. So we don't get those a lot. Nice emails back from the complainants, but in this case, it was really nice to see, especially specific to that stretch of roadway, because I know it's been troubling for a while. So that doesn't mean we're going away. That's stays on our, what we have locally, we call it the Black Cat Top 20. We just, or make it a little bit fun. Mark manages that, and that goes out to the officers every 2 weeks, countywide. And I know 11 stays on there for the last few months anyway. Let's see here.
I
And
see
yeah,
all 3 areas were rated as low as far as the reading from the Black Cat.
yeah, fairly low. We want to see it in the green every time, of course. But when it starts to, like, where's my 11 here? 11 was closer up to the amber area. Also, I may have mentioned, I've mentioned this to a few boards before, but it depends on what you set your enforcement tolerance on when you initially set it up. So like on this one on 9th line, Neil set that up and put it just 10 over. So when we set them up ourselves, we put them about 15 over. We do that. Basically, whenever we pull a car over, it's always officer's discretion at the side of the road. It's different for every officer. You could be charged for 2 kilometers over the speed limit, but I've never seen that in my career. So are we going to ticket somebody for doing 60 and a 50? It could happen. I know I've never personally done that. So usually our enforcement tolerance is 15 over the posted limit. And that means that, okay, if you're doing 10, if you're doing 12, but once you get 15, you ought to know. So, so when it's set 10 over, then your speeding issue, your arrow will start creeping up farther into where it shows that there's an issue. So it looks like for the 9th line, not much of an issue when this was, the study was done the 2nd week of October. Church Street, very, very low. And that's with that 10 kilometer enforcement tolerance. So that's good news. And even 11, well, we're up there because we've received a number of complaints over the past year. So we'd like to see it backed up more in the first quadrant of that green area.
Okay.
Kathy,
Yes.
I thought that the 10th line west of 30 was going to be reviewed, and maybe we could put that on the agenda for further review.
Okay, I'll just go back to my notes from last month. We talked about the 11th line. Yeah, I didn't make a note of it, Jean, but certainly we can ask the inspector to have them look at that for next month's meeting.
Certainly. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome.
Can I just confirm that? Was that the 10th line west of 30?
Yes. It's a hard top road and it's quite fast.
I'll have Mark get a hold of Andrew or Neil and see if we can get that set up and get the results back for November's meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments about the reports?
Madam Chair, And I'll maybe defer this to Doug. I know we've had some complaints about Albert Street in Hastings, and I guess we're looking for the county to put up their black cap, but it would be faster if it was done through Trent Hills. I'm just looking for some thoughts on that one.
If I can, Madam Chair, staff have been in contact with the county and one of the officers at the OPP with respect to that location, and I believe that's all in process.
Perfect.
Thank you.
I could add,
Well-
Madam Chair, that there's, we've spent some significant time, especially since school's been back in. And Dave Putner up there as well. And if I don't know the exact number, but a few speeding tickets have been handed out on Albert.
Perfect. All right, can I have a motion then to accept the Black Cat reports, please?
Also move.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Thank you. Doug, could you call the vote, please?
Councillor Tully,
Yes.
Councillor Bratney,
Yes.
Eric Kell,
Yes.
Chair Defoe,
Yes.
carried by 4.
Okay, so now we're on to general business.
We're on this topic.
Pardon me?
Kathy, when we're still on this topic,
Oh, yes.
there's these yellow signs that have been appearing around. Does anyone know who's putting them up and how available are they?
I'm sorry,
down
I'm
in-
not sure. What signs?
Well, they say, please slow down. This is a neighborhood, not a racetrack. And they're in Trent Drive and they're in Hastings. They're quite a good, they're a sign similar to what the Legion has out right now. And I just was curious to know how one might get some, if it's a local initiative or is it, I don't know if anybody knows anything about it.
I don't
Madam,
know anything. I know that lots of times you'll see people putting up signs saying children at play, slow down, those kinds of things. It would almost seem that it would be a kind of a personal thing.
Madam
Well,
Chair,
it's got-
Yeah.
if I may, from my understanding and speaking with Mr. Allenson, these are private individuals that are putting up those coroplast signs. As long as they are on private property, not an issue. If they're out on the road, we may have an issue and they may be removed.
Okay, thank you for the clarification.
Okay.
Perfect. All right, the next item on the agenda is the updated Police Services Board work plan for 2020. And this was updated as a result of discussions at last month's meeting regarding involvement of the members of the board with the OPP. Eric actually sent me a note this week, and he has a lot of really good ideas about how we can become more involved. Eric, would you like to share that?
Thank you. Unfortunately, that's in an email to you, but just going beyond the ride along, which I think would be a great idea, would also be, just something like, a detachment tour. I've only been in through the front doors there, and you're stopped right there. To be, a little bit more interactive. And through this meeting, I thought of another idea is it would be nice if there was an award that the board could give to first line officers. I know that officer that spotted the anomaly there in the rural area, I'd like to give him an award. So if there was 1 or 2 awards by the OPP that the board would actually issue, I would like to see that. I've heard other boards sponsor announcements like ride program, and this is brought to you by your local police board members. you know, these are something that really don't cost, they're free, but rather than sponsored by the OPP, your local board members. There's also activities done by the police that, you know, you could have, you know, some board members at, you know, just so that we're a little bit more out there. You know, I've been a board member for quite a while now, and there's only a few people that have had the research knowledge to go onto the website to find out how to contact a board member. I know I've worked with some individuals and passed them off to you, Jeff, and to Kathy, but there's just, we're just an unknown entity, and people don't know what we do. I guess we would take a little heat off the counselors as well if we could become a little bit more active. So there's quite a few ideas. I'm not sure. I don't have that email here. Kathy, did I miss
I
it?
think you've touched on most of what you had included in it, Eric. Thank you. Any comments regarding what Eric is proposing?
I could just add a couple of comments, Madam Chair.
Yes.
I think it's a wonderful idea, Eric, about the awards, the recognition. Being provincial, and within Central Region, the Central Region is a huge area, so we annually have our Central Region's award ceremony. It's held in Aurelia every year, but just the fact we're either 2.5 or 3 hours away, our officers that do rightly so earn their awards through the year. Not a lot of them go just because of that travel time. So that's something that I very much support and is being recognized by our own local boards and local communities as well. I know the municipalities, most at county level as well, they have recognition and awards for their firefighters and for their paramedics. And we are your police officers. And I think sometimes when people hear OPP, they think we drive into the county every day, but this is where we live, where we raise our kids. So we're all part of the communities as well. You just happen to have a contract with the OPP, that's all. So I think that's a great idea, and I'd be happy to talk further on that. The engagement also, I think, a great idea. You just let me know what you have in mind, and I'm sure we can get you somehow involved. Detachment tour. We're limited right now because of pandemic, obviously. We don't even allow our members on rest days to come back and with all the numbers spiking and the craziness going on. Hopefully we'll see come spring if that's any different. But that's something we can arrange for at any time. And I don't need a lot of headway for that, even if not even as a group, just individually, we can arrange for that, the Campbellford detachment or even all three. Yeah, but great ideas, and I'll keep my mind open to any type of opportunities. And if you don't mind, is now that it's planted in there, I may throw out a few ideas to see what you would think, Eric, or the board would think in general, as far as that, a further engagement.
Yeah, exactly. And that reminds me, that was one of my suggestions as well. Let's throw it out to Jeff and see if he can come up with some more ideas. That, I think, was my last suggestion. So we're on the same page and same actually. So
even if again, outside the pandemic, our auxiliary members, they're so amazing. They do so much good community work, whether it's food drives or things like that. But we can talk more about it and just fine tune exactly what you're looking for. Is it that exposure to the community? A booth, a banner, and then that maybe might start the conversation with members of the community of exactly what board members do, what they're responsible for, and go for there. So that could be something come next summer, those shared booths, or you could have a couple auxiliary there, maybe a member of the community policing and PSB member as well, and just that chance to talk to people.
Exactly what I'm thinking.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you very much. So has everyone reviewed the updated work plan?
Madam Chair, if I may, just for the board's information, with the Remembrance Day ceremonies being canceled,
Yes.
I did execute the stuff this week to continue to make the standard donation to each of the Legion branches. So those checks are on their way to
Oh,
support.
perfect. Perfect.
I'm hearing on the radio that the activities are only for invited members only, and the general public is asked not to attend the cenotaphs during the ceremony, that it's only invited veterans only, and to come either before or after. And this is on some of the local radio stations.
Thank you, Eric. Their lawn sign program has been a great success. We went over on Saturday to purchase one and they were all gone.
Yeah.
So they've got more in now, and they'll be selling them again this coming Saturday. But I guess if you have are looking for one, if you have a friend that is a member of the Legion, you can probably get one earlier.
Kathy, I understand their order is coming today, so perhaps if people want them, they better not wait till Saturday.
That's right. Get a hold of one of your contacts and get your sign. I'm glad to see the community is supporting the Legion because they've had a pretty rough year. For sure.
Madam Chair, could I ask a question just at one point on your work plan that I was curious about?
Sure.
It's the under grant applications, proceeds of crime plane vehicle. I just hadn't seen that point before or was part of those conversations. Brian might have been part of that before Brian's retirement.
I honestly don't remember. Can somebody else speak to that?
I would have to investigate it further to see what I can
Okay.
find.
Thanks, Doug, because I'm not. Yeah, I haven't. I'll have to go back through my notes to see if I have anything. Thanks, Jeff. We'll get back to you on that.
That makes me feel a little bit better anyway. I didn't. I hadn't, and I didn't know what context, plane vehicle for the OPP or maybe a plane vehicle for the board and municipality. So, okay.
Not a clue. I guess we need someone to recommend that we accept the updated work plan.
Make that motion.
Thanks, Eric.
I'll second.
Thank you. Doug, if you could call the vote, please.
Eric Cal,
Yes.
Councillor Tully,
Yes.
Councillor Bratney,
Yes.
Chair Defoe,
Yes.
carried by 4.
The next item on the agenda is communications, and it's a letter that the municipality received from the Solicitor General speaking, well, the caption is anti-racism, community safety and policy, but that's part of what she talks about, but she also talks a lot about the new Police Services Act and the fact that they're working on the regulations and that there's going to be a training requirement embedded in the regulations for members of police services boards. So I was really happy to see that because that's been something that has certainly been missing, and that's also been discussed at a couple of the different conferences that I attended. So I was very happy to see that that was included in this fairly lengthy letter. Does anybody have any comments about this correspondence?
Other than that, it's very appropriate. No, I think it's good we're heading in that direction with all that support behind it.
I think so, yes. Well, then if I could have someone move that we accept this as information?
I'll make that motion.
Thanks, Eric.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Ken. Doug, if you could call the vote?
Eric Cal,
Yes?
Counselor Tully,
Yes.
Counselor Bratney,
Yes,
Chair Defoe,
Yes.
carried by 4.
Madam Chair, before we leave communications,
Yes.
I would, how do I say this? It would be nice if personally, we're receiving all this information from Thomas, then there was a lack of information. Then all of a sudden Doug Irwin came up. Welcome aboard, Doug. And so really, I don't need to know what's going on, but it would be nice to know that, we've changed in some way.
The
Counselors of a HR issue or whatever, I know the counselors would be aware, but kind of caught off guard. And, Doug Irwin is coming up and I'm thinking, is this spam or whatever? So it would, to get a heads up would be really nice.
Yes, that's fair. Doug ran our meetings prior to Thomas' arrival a couple years ago. So I guess for me, it wasn't a surprise to see Doug's name, but for you, of course, being relatively new, I can certainly understand that.
Okay, thank you.
Well, if that's everything, then I would like to thank everybody and I think we have a meeting scheduled for the end of November, Doug?
24th.
Okay. And I assume it'll be this type of a format again. So I would like to have a motion for adjournment.
Madam Chair, before we adjourn, I just want to mention, does a number 37 mean something to you?
37. No, I don't think.
Your husband mentioned it at a meeting this morning, yes.
Oh, 31.
31, oh.
Don't make it any worse than it is. That's right. Yes, 31 years of wedded bliss. All right, so do we have
congratulations.
Oh, thank you very much. I know he's had a tough time putting up with me, let me tell you.
He
So do
didn't
we
look
have
too scarred this morning.
What's that?
He didn't look too scarred this morning.
Oh, good. I'm glad. He's just walking really funny right now. That old hip. Well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
Make that motion.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Jean. Doug, would you call the vote, please?
Eric Cal,
Yes.
Counselor Tully,
Yes.
Counselor Bratney,
Yes.
Chair Defoe.
Yes.
We are adjourned and I will stop the recording.
Thanks very
Have a
much.
good